Hello everyone! Today we are going to take a look at using text in your CNC projects in Vectric VCarve. I am using VCarve Pro 9.519, so remember that things may be a bit different if you're using a newer or older version of the software. Text is an important part of many projects you may want to design on your CNC. There are 5 main text functions in the program. We have draw text within a vector box, edit text spacing, convert to curves, and text on a curve. Let's take a look at each one of these functions in turn, shall we? Edit text is where you begin your text journey anytime you want to add text to your project. When you select Edit Text, you will get the Create Text menu over here, and a small box will appear on your document. This small box is where your text will appear. You can click anywhere in your project to move the box, and have the text placed somewhere else, even off to the side if you prefer. You can always move it later, so it's not vital to do this step, but it can help you visually see the text where you'll be putting it if you like. The first box in the Create Text menu is titled Text, and is where you will input the text you are adding to the project. If you have a large volume of text, you can click on the Larger Edit button and open a window to type your text into. You'll notice that as you type, the letters will appear in your project, giving you an idea of how your text will look. You can also use spaces, punctuation, and returns in your text to adjust how it looks. Once you have all your text put in, you can move on to the other attributes. Vectric gives you the option of using the TrueType fonts that are installed on your computer. If that's what you want, make sure you have it selected here. Then you can select any of your fonts from the drop-down menu below. When you make a selection, the text in your document will switch to that font, making it quick and easy to explore which font will look best in your project. As you can see, I'm a bit of a font addict. We purchased a commercial font bundle, and I maxed out the number of fonts my computer will handle. You can also search the internet to find free fonts. There are a ton of them out there. Finding the perfect font for your project can be a lot of fun if you're into that. Just remember that if you're selling your items, make sure you have the commercial rights to the font you choose. And just a quick note, if your font has an @ sign in front of it, that means it is a vertical font, and you will lose your text alignment options, as vertical fonts are always left justified. Vectric also gives you the single line option, which is a list of fonts that are known to carve well and quickly. The selection here is much more limited, but eliminates any potential carving problems caused by a font's design. Below your font selection, you have the option to make your text bold or italic. Bolding your text will make the lines of the font slightly thicker. This is very useful for thinner fonts that may not carve well otherwise. The italic option leans your font slightly to the right as an ode to old-school calligraphy, and is generally used in typography to add emphasis to a word. Some fonts will have their own bolded or italicized versions, and I recommend that you use those if they are available, rather than adding the style here, as the font creator has taken the time to make each letter look its best in the modified format, rather than the generic version of adding the style. See the difference in spacing when using the added format here, or using the created italic version here. Our next option is text alignment, sometimes called justification. This determines if your text will line up with the left or right side of your text box, or will center each line. The choice here should be determined based on need. Where your text is in the document can change whether you want to align the text to which side. If you're making a paragraph of text, you will probably want to justify it to the left as is standard for maximum readability. But usually, I don't find it matters all that much, as I tend to use single words and just move it to exactly where I want it to be anyway. Finally, we have the text height. If you are aiming for a certain height, this box will allow you to make sure your letters are the height you desire. The height changes immediately after entering a number, so you can try different heights if you're not sure. However, you can easily change the height of your text once it's in the project. Once you have your text in the document, you can change the size and location at any time by clicking on it once to select it, and a second time to edit. This will cause the bounding boxes to appear. You can grab any of the boxes and change the size of your text. The boxes on the top and bottom will change the height of the text, while the boxes on the sides can change the width. The corner boxes will adjust both height and width in the direction you move it. The box in the middle allows you to grab the text and move it anywhere you want. The dark black squares let you rotate the text around the center point. The anchor point tells you the exact position of this little dot on your text, which indicates the beginning point of the text. If you have chosen a center alignment, the anchor point will indicate the center of your text. And if you select right, it will be on the right side of your text. You can go back and edit your text at any time by selecting the text and then opening the Edit Text tool. Next, the Auto Layout Text button allows you to create text within a vector. This is a convenient way to put text into certain vectors. The software automatically changes the size of the text to fit within the vector you have chosen. If you enter the Auto Layout Text feature without selecting a vector, it will create one the size of your entire piece. Once in the tool, you can see that whatever I type appears within the object I selected and changes size as I continue to type. The font and alignment options are the same as the Edit Text function, but you see there are a few new options added below them. You can change the size of the bounding box, this invisible box the tool created that contains the text. See how the guidelines move if I change the width. Now the text will be sized to fit within this wider box. You can choose a margin size, which will affect how much space is left around the text on each of the edges of the box. Selecting None will allow the text to touch the edges of the box when needed, while Normal leaves 10% of space around the text and Wide leaves 20% of space. Here we have the stretch options. You can choose to stretch the text to better fit within the box. Under Vertical Stretch, you can choose between two options. You can increase the spacing between the lines of text by selecting Space Lines to Fit. Alternately, you can choose Stretch Characters, which will make the individual letters taller to fit the space. There are three options under Horizontal Stretch. The first option is called Stretch Spaces, and it will affect the spaces between words. The next option is Stretch Kerning, which uses the space between the individual letters to get a better fit. Finally, you can choose to stretch characters, which will widen the letters themselves to reach the edges of the box. Note that if your text already reaches the edges of the box, none of the horizontal stretch options will change anything. You can use this tool with other shapes, like selecting a circle as your bounding vector. However, the box the text is bound to will still be a square. The text spacing tool, here called Edit Text Spacing and Curve, gotta love the concise names here, is the tool you will use to manually change the text spacing, or kerning, that was automatically changed in the Auto Layout tool. I find that I use this tool quite often when I am using fancier fonts that may need to have letters separated for carving. When looking at text for carving on wood, you need to watch for areas where the text is too close together and the wood left after carving may be too thin and could cause chip out. For example, this font is called Bank Design. It is a good bold font, but see how the letters are too close together? Let's zoom in a little closer. There isn't enough room between the S and the A. This thin slice of wood is likely to cause a chip out and ruin the look or readability of your piece. To fix this, we can use this tool to increase the space between the letters. When you put your mouse over the word, you can see the letters V and A with two little arrows between them. The arrows signify which direction the letters will be moved, either toward or away from each other. Here, the arrows are pointed toward each other. If I click between two letters, they will move accordingly. Now that's the opposite of what I want, so I need to hold down the Shift key. See how the arrows are now facing away from each other? If I click now, the letters move farther apart. I can click several times until I get the look I'm going for. Now I can move my mouse between any of the other letters and move them apart as well, making sure to keep the Shift key held down. If you have large movements to do, you can hold down Control as well as Shift and the adjustments will be bigger. Now the letters are spaced properly to carve well. The other function of this tool is to adjust the leading, or the spaces between lines. Like with the kerning, you can see as I place my mouse between the lines, the pointer changes to two arrows with the word line above and below them. When the arrows are pointing toward each other, I can click and move the lines closer together. When I hit Shift, the arrows change direction, and I can click and move the lines of text farther apart. Remember when you are finished to zoom out and look at it to make sure everything still looks good when seen all together. Now we are going to hop over to the Text on a Curve tool. Sometimes we don't want our text in a flat line on a piece. Vectric includes this handy tool to help you wrap the text on a curve. You will want your text and curve already in your project. Do note that this only works with text on a single line. Highlight your text and click on the Text on Curve tool. This will bring up the Properties box on the left. You'll notice that everything is grayed out at the moment. That's because we haven't selected the curve we want to wrap our text to. With your text still highlighted, hold down the Shift key and select the curve you want to use. The software then takes your text and places it along the curve. The Properties box has many different ways to customize this effect. First, you can decide on the text size. Maintain text size should be selected if you want your text to stay the size it is. Scale text to fill curve will change the size of your text to run the entire length of the line. This can be nice when you want the text to span a certain distance. Here, you can manually decide how much of the line you want it to use for the scaling. If you change it to 80%, then the text will fill up 80% of the line. Text spacing allows you to determine how much space is in between each letter. Increasing this slider will increase the space and decrease the size of your letters. Text position allows you to decide where you want the text in relation to the line. You can place it above the curve, on the curve, or below the curve. Clicking the box that says Text on the other side will move the text to the opposite side of the arc. Offset distance places a space between the line and the text of the amount you enter. Text alignment allows you to move the text to be aligned with the left, right, or middle of the curve. I find middle is almost always the best selection here, as you usually want the text to follow the center of the curve. The next important choice is whether you want your letters to follow the curve or remain straight up and down. This choice drastically changes the look of your text. Generally, if I'm placing text on a curve, I intend for the letters to curve as well. See how much better it looks when they follow the line of the curve? Now here's some examples of text on less conventional curves, including this one made with the line tool that isn't a curve at all. Also, you can still change your text after placing it on the curve. Finally, we have our last text tool, which is without a doubt the most powerful. The Convert to Curves button switches your text into vectors. This means that each letter, in fact each individual line, is a separate vector which can be manipulated like any other object. It is important to understand that once you switch your text with this tool, you can no longer edit it with the text tools we've already talked about. So make sure you're happy with everything before moving on to this step. Why would you want to turn your text into vectors, you may ask? The answer is freedom. Once they are vectors, you can manipulate the letters in any way you like. You can change the way a certain letter looks. You can move the letters in any way you want. You can use all the other tools like trimming and joining. Make sure if you are moving any letter with an inside shape, like this lowercase a, that you grab both pieces. You may even want to group them just to make sure they always stay together. Of course, with this tool, you can even replace those inside shapes with something else if you like. Let's put a star in the center of the P, just for fun. You can slice through the letters simply by creating a rectangle and using the trim tool. Now you have a neat space in the middle of your letters. Once your letters are objects, the options are unlimited. So that's an overview of how to use text in Vectric VCarve. I hope you feel more confident adding words to your projects now. If you still have questions, comment down below. We always try to answer them. Is there a fun way you like to use text in your projects? Let us know. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps us out. And until next time, have fun and stay safe in the shop.